Another key issue that's been doing the rounds in the industry, JT, is the lappers, and obviously Kenny and Larry Brooks. He had his comments on it too. I guess
Yeah.
what's your take on it? Our colleague Lewis at Vital was saying, in road racing you can just, jump off, get out of the line, but in Supercross, those lines are always changing, and you really sort of ruin any sort of momentum in rhythm sections that are so important to do, which can elevate danger if you're rolling them as well. So it's so hard to do. The impacts are massive, motocross and Supercross when you pull off, but it's a tough solution. There's no real, remedy for it, or it would have been done already in a lot of ways. It's hard to enforce penalties with, would you need more cameras, more flaggers? Is the weight of the blue flag enough for these guys? So what's your take on it? Firstly, JT, then Adam.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. The simple thing is that if there was a solution, it would have already been implemented. And this has been talked about for 40 years, literally. And we haven't been able to come to some sort of right answer about how to mitigate this. So there's no reason for me to think that there's going to be some magical solution that's conjured up now. And it's really difficult to tell riders, especially when they're battling for position. In the case of Roxon, they were, I understand that it's not the race for the lead and they're not championship implications. I get all that, but it's still these riders' livelihoods, and they're in a 450 main event battling for position to try to get points for a national number and to qualify for the SMX playoffs and all those things. So to tell them like, hey, forget about your race. You need to move over because fourth place is coming by. And that's literally what we're talking about in the scenario is Kenny was in fourth. You need to move out of the way because fourth place is coming by and your race is no longer relevant anymore. And I understand that may be oversimplifying it and maybe I'm overstating that a little bit, but in the end, that's what you're telling them is like, hey, you don't matter as much as they do. Quit racing, get out of the way. And even if that's the way we want to go, okay, fine. I don't decide. That's not for me to decide. But if that's the way we want to go, we also have to understand that moving out of the way can sometimes be one of the most dangerous things you can do because Kenny or whoever, Cooper, Malcolm, Chase, whoever it might be at any particular race, the only thing they can do is look at the rider they're lapping and have some sort of hope of predictability of where that rider is going to go. And then they position themselves and make a plan to go past them based off of where they're not going to be. And if that rider is now told when you're getting lapped, get out of the way, make a dedicated movement and a concerted effort to move out of the way, well, there's a great chance, especially in a battle where Cooper and Kenny are battling, there's a great chance they're going to move into the way. So that's where the challenge comes into this is for years we've basically come to the agreement of just hold your line. Don't do anything erratic, and then that will allow the faster rider to know where to go and they're going to make a pass anyway. That's why they're being lapped to start with is because they're going much slower. And as long as the following rider, the leaders coming by know where you're going to be, they're going to be able to make their move past them. I still think that's the best course of action. It doesn't mean it's infallible, but I don't really see another way around it. And there are always going to be exceptions to it because this situation was one of the worst you can have. Two riders battling for position in both scenarios. The lapped riders are battling for position and the lead riders are battling for position. So now you've got four guys all grouped up together in one of the most treacherous sections we've seen in years, which was the sand. It's not going to get worse than that. And that doesn't excuse this incident, but I think this was like the extreme example of how it can go wrong because we squeezed too many people in too tight of a spot with zero predictability of where they were going. And all it took was Jeremy Hand to move a little bit to the right and Kenny moved 6 inches to his left. And then it just exploded. And Tristan Lane went down, not anything to do with Tristan Lane. He just was a casualty of the other contact. So I don't know. I'm certainly not saying that Larry Brooks is wrong. I'm not saying that Cooper Webb is wrong. Both of them kind of shared the same sentiment in their interviews, Coop on Saturday night and Larry this week. I just don't know that we have the right answer. So unless you're going to present a workable solution that holds water, I don't know that complaining about it or stating the obvious problem is doing a whole lot. So I don't know. That's kind of where I come down on it is I don't think that they're wrong. I don't. I understand. And I've been the guy that's being lapped, and I understand what it feels like to not know where to go. And no matter what you do, seems like you're doing the wrong thing. And I've lapped people too. I've raced all over the world and lapped lots of people, and I've been furious at them for being in the way. Nobody's trying to ruin the race or have their race ruined. So until we can find, again, I'll end where I started, until we can find something that actually everybody looks at and says, oh, yeah, that's going to work. I don't see a lot changing. I really don't. I think we're going to be in the same spot again in 10 years.
Yeah, I agree with JT. It's really difficult in motocross and supercross because everyone's taking different lines. It's not as easy as a road race track or a Formula One track to just hold your line or just move out the way. Everyone's taking different lines, and especially in supercross, the track is only so wide. So where do you actually move if two people are battling when you've got a blue flag? And like JT said, actually moving out the way is worse. Like if you're on a normal over here in Belgium, you ride with the normal public, and when somebody moves out of your way on a normal practice day or a sand track, it's actually worse because they move into your way. Um, so I second that, but I did see what Cooper Webb said, but I don't know. It's a difficult one. I guess I don't know what the in. Here's a question, JT. In Supercross, do you have the same flaggers that go to every Supercross race, or is it always different?
Always different. Yeah, always different.
Always different. The
Hmm.
only thing that could maybe I don't know how it is there, or how well they get trained before the weekend is. I feel like in Europe sometimes that the blue flag could be implemented better, as in you get shown it not earlier, but sometimes you get shown it too early, and then you're
Right.
slowing down, looking, think, oh, I have 10 seconds behind, then you carry on, and then yeah, that makes it more difficult. I don't know if they could change the rules where yeah they
You almost get
show you the flag.
desensitized to it if they give it to you too early.
Yeah, and then you start thinking about it, and then you're having a battle, and or maybe it should be just the rule that you can't. You, if you're a lap rider, you can't overtake for position under the blue flag circumstances because
Right.
yeah, I've had
Yep.
it as well.
That makes sense.
When you're in a battle and you get blue flagged, and you're trying your best to actually move out the way of the race leaders for the win. But yeah, then once they've passed the guy you're battling with, he just hops on the back wheel of the front two, and he comes blowing past you as well. So
Yeah,
I think
this weekend
that they're
was
two subtle changes, but
a
I think
bad
that could help a
scenario.
little bit.
I think some tracks it's really easy, and I hope this comes across the right, or I'm translating this right way, but on many tracks there's a dedicated kind of primary line and then kind of a secondary line that's not quite as good.
Yeah,
And everybody racing knows where the good line is and the not so good line. And really, as a general rule, if you're being lapped, you always want to give the leaders the good line, and you can just take the secondary line, and that's typically going to be enough. They're going to go through in the faster line. They're going faster anyway, and it takes care of itself. Tampa was very difficult because the track was a little bit narrow and very one-lined. So there you really had to try to get out of the way. And there were a few sections you could get like the corner before the whoops, you could go to the outside berm where nobody was going. That would get you out of the way. And there were a couple of sections where you could really do it, but a lot of sections you really couldn't. You couldn't get out of the way so much. Like you could try to move over a few feet, but there was nowhere really to go. In those sections, if the leaders came up on you, you were just in the way. You were going to be in the way, and if you made an evasive maneuver to get out of the way, you're probably going to make it worse than it already was.
yeah. I guess in Supercross it is a lot more difficult than outdoors, but I feel like if they implement just then maybe some small changes, like you said, I don't think we're gonna ever cancel it completely out because it's moto. There's too many factors. Um, you might be 5 seconds faster than this guy on that section, or but if you was not able to gain a position, if you are under the blue flag circumstances, I would feel that would stop the people getting lapped racing so much in that circumstance.
Yeah, no, I think that your idea there is a good one. It's a small change. It maybe doesn't fix everything, but it would be an improvement, which is really what we're trying to accomplish anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, well said. Great insight, lads. Really great convo. And obviously, I guess we'll quickly touch on, I guess, similar topic in a way, and with a lack of solutions is the top blocks. Obviously, they see they're there for safety and advertising or whatever. How much portion of that goes each way. WSX has the cardboard boxes, that has its own issues. Adam, I guess, as you and MXGP, a lot of those track protecting things. They have the Ram truck there. At least they don't have that in Supercross, but those finish line structures are pretty dangerous with the cords coming off. If you go off, you can sort of get decapitated almost. So that's pretty wild. You have the yellow stakes in motocross. Even RJ got stabbed with them once. So I guess we'll start with you, JT. Once again, it's a good talking point, but the solutions are sort of not definite, are they?
No, and I wonder if, there are downsides to it, but I don't know, like globally, this phrase may not work, but we call them hay bales, and basically they're just straw that are tied together, and that's what we had. That's what was used. That's what was used when I was racing, and they're not perfect, but they do move. They don't like catch, if that makes sense. Like they're not going to hook on your foot peg or like the Tuff block and the material that we use now is really sticky, and it really wants to hold on and cause problems with your motorcycle. Like when Pierce Brown caught it, instead of just blowing it out of the way, it almost absorbs energy, catches, and then that changes the trajectory of where you're going, which is typically going to be too much to recover from. And that's why you see these crashes. The hay bale just would either move out of the way because it wasn't held in place and it would just move, or it would explode. Like if you landed on it, it would just go like poof and a explosion of hay and straw, like abracadabra, but it would at least not impede what you were doing. And it usually didn't even make you crash. It would scare the hell out of you because you think you were going to crash, but then it would just give way. Your rear tire or whatever would blow through it. And if you were going to save it, at least you had a chance to. The downside of it is it gets in the dirt and they don't like how that looks because they use the same dirt year after year. So I understand it's not a perfect solution, but when I compare the two, to me, if you're purely considering rider safety, to me it's a superior option to what we have now because I've hit tough blocks. If you hit a tough block, you're probably going down. That's just the long and the short of it. One way or another, it's going to make sure you're on the ground. And I just didn't have that same experience with hay bales. I've hit 100 of them and didn't crash.
Yeah, it's a strange one. I've not been to the Supercross, so I don't actually know what a tough block feels or how heavy it is or what it's like to hit one, but seems to be a lot more common now. But I don't know why. I guess if you want something, you need something that's going to collapse if you land on it or blow out the way if you clip it. And when at the side of the start in MXGP, might be one thing that we have that's better than you is they have just like it velcros. It's like cardboard monster, um, small hay bales, I guess, if you wish. But it's filled with nothing. It's just like a stiff base, and it's like a half a circle, and it just velcros on. And if you hit that, they just knock out of the way. If you go down the start straight and you get clipped and you start going towards it, they just either collapse or just move out of the way. I don't know if something like that would be better.
I'll
Yeah, it's
take anything
interesting.
over what we have right now.
Yeah, your take on
Yeah,
those finish line structures too, Adam? A few incidents with them or close calls as well?
what in MXGP?
Yeah.
I'd rather hit a tough block than some of the things on the side of the MXGP track, that's for sure. And like you say, there's ram trucks, there's sprinkler systems, there's
We
lorry,
we used to have a boat.
curtain side, tie straps holding up a metal fox, a whole
We used to
shot
have a
line on the outside of the corner.
gigantic ski boat, wakeboard boat in the middle of the track.
Oh yeah, I
That's
remember
awesome.
that. I remember that.
Bring it
Yeah,
back.
we have a lot
No,
of things in MXGP, to be fair, but some of the tracks are old school where there is actually nothing you can do about it. But there's
Yeah.
like one that always gets me. It's like the bottom of the track at Czech Republic. Can you pick? When you do that tabletop at the bottom, and then you have that banked right hand corner after it.
Yep.
Can you picture that or not? and
Yeah,
there's just
totally.
a house. There's just a house the other side of that. If you got it wrong off that tabletop or when you landed, that berm just you would land straight on the roof of the guy's house. There, I wish they were taking a little bit consideration of maybe putting a net like you have in Supercross, or some of the places cover the trees up, like in Lugo this year. Um, I can't remember who it was. Just hit one of the trees. It was the fill-in rider for Jackie Martins. He just hit one of the trees, and it was just yeah, that's his season finished after that. But sometimes I
Yeah.
think that's where they need to improve over here. But that's the investment. I guess it takes quite a lot of
If
investment, and I guess that's maybe not that high on the priority list.
if Albertine were here, this was where he would mention a deer, but I don't think that was anybody's fault.